Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We've often talked about how important it is to forgive. Forgive others doesn't mean you condone what they did, but you're forgiving them because it's impactful on yourself. It will make you feel better, help you heal. We're going to go a few layers deeper there and talk about self-forgiveness, why it's so hard to do, what are some of the steps, and to help us with that is somebody who helps people a lot of times. She's got an organization that takes away the stigmatism from mental challenges that many of us have, and she works with people all over. And she's back with us. Coach Key from Hu'Mend is here. Welcome back. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, we've talked about your ministry before and how you help people with a lot of the stuff that we all kind of deal with. This this concept of forgiving yourself. Do you feel that we all, whether we know it or not, probably have something that we need to forgive in ourselves?
We do. I mean, I know I do. I'm not perfect. So, I do things on a daily basis where I say to myself, oh my God, I could have done that a little bit better, but then I have to say to myself, we're subject to error. We're humans. As you can see, I always say that. And so, it's just a step by, it's just um, a daily thing. That's all I can say for everyone, I feel.
Is it that these little things pop up from time to time? Like even the littlest thing, like I should have done this tonight, and I told somebody that I couldn't help them out with something, and I feel bad, but I need to forgive myself for it, or little things like that. Are we even talking about that, or even some of the bigger things, like I did something wrong in a relationship and it ended the relationship, and I feel bad that I hurt the other person? That's on a higher level. Is it all of this stuff all mixed together?
To me, it's one is hindsight 2020, and then the other one is right in the moment. Like, that you've done something that you shouldn't have done, or you could have done a little bit better. And then it's in those moments that we ask for grace from other people, to forgive us for what we've done against them. But then there's also that part, after it's over with, and then you say, what was it about me that made me become so offended by what was said that caused the dissension in the first place? And then you have some self-reflection, and then you be like, oh, okay, I remember a time when, and then you think about it, how much you've been harboring those feelings inside of you, and you go, it's time for me to let that go. And then it's time for me to forgive myself for holding on to that negative emotion, that negative feeling, because it's spewing over into my personal or even my professional life.
How do you know when you need to forgive yourself?
I believe that when to forgive yourself, because let me just say, for me, I know when I need to forgive myself is when I am constantly in my head running back situations from the past, or thinking about, or comparing myself to others, thinking about how better they are than I am. And it's important to know that you can only be yourself. You can only be who you are. And you have to first accept all of the imperfections and the flaws that you have about yourself, and then take a step back and say, either I've grown from that space and I need to forgive myself for what I did to myself then, or I need to recognize that there's still some growth that I need to do, and I need to put myself into that position to grow. So I need to expose myself to things that are going to help me grow, that's going to get me out of my quote unquote comfort zone of constantly berating myself with thoughts that are putting me down.
I would imagine, based on what we're talking about here today, that forgiving yourself can help you be more of your authentic self, the real
Mm-hmm.
you. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not living that, if you're not being you, it almost feels like something's out of whack, like I'm being somebody
Mm-hmm.
who I'm really not.
Right.
And this helps you
Right.
get more to who you are, because it's not easy to forgive. Not easy to
It's
forgive somebody else, just as hard to forgive yourself.
It is. It's very hard to forgive yourself. And I often wonder, and still, even, the you know, clients that I work with, they often ask me, why is it so hard? And one of the things is because we're our own worst critic. We are. And we have these internal barriers that we deal with, and that internal voice that just tells us that we are less than what we are. And, that goes back to me, with my faith. I lean very heavily on that because it gives me a reminder that I am made in such of a perfect image that I should accept that part of me and recognize that um, the negativity and the beating myself up and that negative inner talk is not is the enemy. It's not a
Mm.
part of where I come from. It's not a part of who I am. And I think that once you, like you say, get to a point where you have accepted yourself and you're able to be authentic with your flaws, with all of that, whatever imperfection it is that you have, and you can get to a point where you stop comparing yourself to other people, I think it makes it a little bit easier. I think it makes it a little bit easier.
Hmm. How do you do it though? How do you forgive? And I'm thinking about things in my mind now that I need to forgive myself for. And part of it is I'm not sure I need to. Like,
Mm,
was that thing my fault? Was it somebody else's fault? And I'm
mm-hmm,
not putting the blame on anybody else.
mm-hmm,
Even in a relationship, because it takes two.
mm-hmm,
So I guess, my role in a relationship that maybe didn't go well, I would have to take responsibility of some things that I did or didn't do. Um, but that's where my mind is going right now. I'm thinking of all things that, I would need to forgive.
yeah,
And there's even little things, even the last week, well, I could have done that better. I should have, been more attentive, maybe here or there, whatever, little things like
mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm,
But I guess it's the realization of how you're gonna feel if you do forgive yourself.
mm.
It's almost like being released.
It is a relief. And, you know, and it's funny that you bring up relationships because I've had conversations with young women and women in general who have been in toxic relationships and abusive relationships,
Hmm.
and they they've gotten out of the situation, but they ask themselves, why did I stay so long? What was it that made me stay so long? And they go, well, because I loved him, and or he was a good provider, or I wanted to be there so my kids could have their father, different things like that. And so once they're out of it and their mindset is shifted, because it's not only physical abuse, it's verbal abuse as well. Again, they ask themselves, why did I stay so long? Why did I put myself,
Mm.
why did I put myself through that situation? Why did I have so
Mm.
many blackened eyes and bruises? And that's one of the situations where um, a person has to learn how to forgive themselves for putting themselves through situations that is another person's fault. But then again, just like you say, it's a two-way street. It has to be a responsibility that they need to recognize themselves. So what are you responsible for instead? why do you need to accept the fact that you did stay and you didn't leave? And sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes it's feelings of inadequacy that they don't leave. The abuser has made them feel like no one else would want them. And so um, they have to ask themselves, why would I allow someone else or give someone else that much power over?
I never thought of it in that way in terms of relationships, that if you stayed in a bad relationship, whatever the reason might be, you might not have had the courage to leave. You might have stayed because of your kids, whatever it is. Um, but you need to forgive yourself for that. You knew
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't right and you did it for whatever reason, or maybe you couldn't get out of it. You
Sometimes
know,
you can't.
sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
can't. Maybe you've been controlled so much in that relationship. Now you're out of it. Now you see it for what it is or was, but then you need to release yourself, forgive yourself for staying so long and understanding the reasons why. Is that part of the self-forgiveness, understanding like we're giving reasons here why somebody may have stayed in a toxic relationship? Um, is that part of the process to realize in yourself why you did it?
That is part of the process. I mean, you just like you said, you have to recognize what part you played in it. And sometimes you didn't play a part in it. Sometimes it's just that you have a person who is internally going through things within themselves and they have been triggered by something externally and it's caused them to come in and take it out on you.
Sure.
I can definitely say for me, and this is why I mean this is one of the reasons why I work so closely with clients um, who have been in domestic relationships that have been abusive, is because from my past of being in an abusive relationship. And um, one of the reasons, a reason why I did not stay, what helped me to recognize that I needed to leave this person is because, they threatened, they attempted to take my life. And so, and I had a child that I needed to live for, but not only that, I needed to live for myself. And so that was a wake up call for me. And I had to realize, what is it that I'm doing to provoke this? And really, there's nothing that I did. There's nothing I did. I didn't do anything. I just knew that I loved, I accepted, and I wanted to nurture. And all of those things are very beautiful. But when it comes to a point where they're not received, and it's not being recognized, your love is not being recognized, it's really time to walk away. And you have to understand that if you don't get out, it's your life or theirs. For me, that's what it was for me. It was either I stay and die or I leave and I live. And that understanding that I had to have for myself was I needed to grasp the fact that I was worth so much more than what I was giving myself. And that play and that comes back to past trauma, being bullied, being in situations
Mm-hmm.
where I've been, beaten up so much verbally and having that low self-esteem and having that low self-acceptance. I had to accept the fact that I was harboring those feelings and it was causing me to allow abuse to continue. And so it's not easy to say to yourself, you know, I need to take responsibility for feeling this way or harboring these feelings, but you at some point you have to recognize that.
And you've said something before, Coach Key, that really stands out. Stay in this relationship or die. Now, that could mean literally, but it also could mean you're dying on the inside. You're
You are.
staying in this relationship and you just feel blah, nothing. I'm here. I'm showing up. I'm showing love. It's not being received, but here I am.
Mm-hmm,
I'm slowly dying emotionally inside. There's nothing going on here.
mm-hmm,
Um, And then again, there's all different reasons why we stay. One of them
Mm-hmm.
might be you just want acceptance from the other person. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing all this stuff and you're not getting it back, or not getting
Right.
it back the way you need it. But that goes back to what you said. It's probably from our past, whether
Mm-hmm.
we were bullied, whether we had issues with our parents, and we felt that maybe we weren't good enough. So what do? You know,
Mm-hmm.
we stay in those relationships, but we have to forgive ourselves for staying in them because we didn't do it because we necessarily wanted to. We had to because we didn't figure this out yet.
Yeah, and one of the things that I don't think that many people recognize is that, sometimes the feelings that we carry with ourselves is from generational trauma. And that's something that we rarely talk about. But, you could be sustaining or holding on to feelings of inadequacy or feelings of low self-worth because that may have come from your mom or that may have come from your dad because of trauma that they've had in their life and so on and so forth. We can go
Sure.
back further and further. And if we think about it, genetically, that takes a lot of work to heal. That takes a lot of work to heal.
Mm.
So it's really important that you get some therapy. When you recognize that you're having issues that you just can't seem to wrap your mind around, where is this coming from or why am I feeling this way?
Yep.
It's really good to seek therapy and to talk to someone else that's on the outside looking in that can help you.
It's so true. It's probably the most important thing you can do for yourself
Mm-hmm.
because then you figure out what's going on. I call it connecting the dots. I do this, oh, because of that. I feel a certain way when that situation comes up. Oh, because of that. Um, I went through all of that. We all have them. And it almost got to a point where now I'm like, all right, well, kind of figured all of that out. Now I'm just, this is what I got, and I'm going to work with what I have. That's me. And I know what I want to do and I know where I want to go. But now I have to really focus on that. But the forgiveness thing um, is, you brought up the great point before, I got to say, I'm thinking forgiving yourself for the way you act toward other people. But what you just said, forgiving yourself for staying in relationships, doing things that, to yourself that you you didn't even realize until you start thinking about them that you really have to forgive yourself for them.
Yeah, but then it what you said is also important as well, forgiving, ourselves the way we treat someone else, right? Like it's not always about us. Like, you can be in a situation where you have played the bad guy. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
In a relationship or in a conversation or just at work, you having a bad day and you take it out on someone else. Hey, where did that come from? Not only do you need forgiveness from that person and that person forgives you, recognize what it is that caused you to act that way. And you go, oh, aha, I get it. I act this way because, well, this morning when I left the house, I had an argument with my spouse and she said some things to me that I didn't like. And I didn't like those things because, well, when I was 23, I was in a situation where someone did something to offend me and I never gotten an apology for it. So you bring all of that back into the picture and it all just festers and then it just explodes. And so it's good to handle things the moment that it happens. It's good to handle emotions the moment that they come up, especially when you're in a situation and it's heated and it's a very sensitive conversation and you're feeling that it is and you're feeling that okay, any minute I'm about to say something that I know I don't need to say, and that's when you need to walk away. That's when you need to say, you know what, right now is not a good time for us to have this conversation. I want to walk away from it. Can we table it till later? Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, because some people like, I want this handled now. I want to talk about this right now. And that's when you have to say, I understand that you want to talk about this now, but this is not a good topic for me, because there are some things that's within me that I'm feeling right now that's not your fault, and I don't want to take that out on you. So it's best that I walk away. And then that's when you take time and you sit with yourself and you go through the Rolodex of all these emotions and all of these thoughts and all of these feelings about yourself. Why am I so easily offended? Why am I taking this personally? And there's a reason.
There's a reason.
There's a reason.
Yeah, I think it's that, searching your soul and finding the reason. It doesn't give you the reason to do things that are bad or things that you have to forgive yourself for. But it helps you understand. Helps you understand.
It does help you understand.
Right. And then helps you forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when we talk about, forgiving somebody else, it doesn't mean you're condoning what they did. It's the same thing for yourself. It doesn't mean that, I got bullied, so it's okay for me to act that way.
Yeah, it's okay for me to, it's okay for me. This is my excuse. I'm holding on to this badge of hurt. And because this happened to me, it's okay for me to do this. It's okay for me to act like that. And it's not okay.
No,
it's not okay. It's not okay for you, because you could be robbing yourself of experiencing something very beautiful, but you're holding on to things and you're bringing that into a new situation. And it's not going to work out the way that you think it should work out, because of you holding grudges, because of you holding ill feelings, because of you thinking ill will. And you have to say to yourself, what is it? Why am I feeling this way? It's because something happened to me. I need to recognize what's happened to me. I need to iron out my emotions when it comes to what has happened to me. And then I have to go, I have to forgive myself because I have missed out on situations that could benefit me greatly because I was holding on to grudges. I have to forgive myself because I have spent so much time self-doubt. I have to forgive myself because I've had thoughts of harming myself. I have to forgive myself because I have, let's just say, for instance, I have lied to myself about a situation that I was in, and I was giving that person too much of a benefit of the doubt, knowing that they're not treating me the way that they supposed to be treating me or the way I want to be treated, and I stayed.
Yeah. Even, I know somebody in a situation where their spouse, they caught their spouse cheating. It was like text cheating. It seemed like it was minor. And then my best friend, and he's like, forgive, went through therapy, house kids and everything. And then found out a number of years later, that she was doing it a lot. And that's where the marriage ended. She pulled the plug on it, and he didn't know why. So he always says, I should have known. I should have known. But and I even told him, I said, you know the answer, but it was hard to give up. I'm ending it right there because he gave the trust. He gave the trust, and now he looks back, and you can hear it in his voice, like I should have known. He's not forgiven himself for that.
But,
yeah.
Time invested. I mean, time invested when you're in relationships. It's the time that's invested. It's your heart that you gave. It's the trust that you gave. And when someone pulls the rug from underneath you, it's hard. It's hard to come back from that. And then you sit and you think to yourself, like, what in the world was I thinking? What was I thinking that I didn't recognize this in the first place?
Yeah. Yep. But you can't beat yourself up, because in his situation, he did it because I guess what you just said, you had time invested, you have a family, all the roots put down. And then what are you gonna do? How do you forgive yourself? You got to forgive yourself. It's like, I did it. Came from a place of love. I thought the other person, and
And it's okay. It's okay. And it's okay to love. It's okay to love. It's okay to trust. It's okay to give of yourself. And the moment that you recognize that, hey, my trust and my love is not being is going into someone who is not reciprocating, or someone who is taking advantage of the trust or taking advantage of the love, it's time for change to be made. Either you sit down and you have a conversation with them, or you sit down and you have a conversation with yourself. Something needs to change. Something needs to be different. And what is it that I need to do?
Yeah.
What is it that I need to do for myself in order to remove myself from this situation and get what it is that I deserve? And the only way you know what it is that you deserve is when you take responsibility for your emotions and yourself and the things that you've been holding against yourself in order to feel and get the worth that you deserve. You have to love yourself first. You have to love yourself first before you can give the love. And the only way for you to love yourself unconditionally is to accept your flaws, accept the things that are not pretty, and be okay with those things. And then forgive yourself for you allowing your quote unquote imperfections to keep you from living and being authentically you. There's nothing wrong with having big eyes, a big nose, short hair, you're short or you're too tall, or just whatever the situation may be externally. It's okay that, you may whine or you may pout when you don't get your way. It's probably people would see it as very childish. So why do I whine? Why do I pout? Why do I do that? Well, it's because as a child, there were certain things that if I wanted it, I whined and I pouted and I got it. So there's someone who accepted that behavior. But 33 and 34, 35, 40 years old, the whining and the pouting has changed. But you have to be like, you know what? It was okay that I did it. Now that I'm older and I've grown, I recognize that I need to do something different.
Yep. And forgive yourself for doing it up until that point.
Yes.
We're out of time, but you said a word, and maybe we can circle back to this word, deserve. Things, what you deserve in life. And I don't mean, karma, people treating you horrible or anything like that. No, what you deserve. You deserve love. You deserve to feel like you belong, and all of those things. That's such a powerful word. It really is.
It is. And you yourself deserve the love that you give yourself.
Yep.
You're with yourself more than you are with anybody else. And if you don't love and accept yourself, that's a huge issue, because you're with you all the time. That's the relationship that matters the most.
We forget that.
We forget that.
We do.
That's the greatest love. That's the greatest love, when you love yourself.
Well, my schedule changed today, so I'm in between a bunch of things later on. I'm dating myself and taking myself out to dinner.
There you go. Good.
I usually never do that. Usually somebody else is around. How do we connect with you to learn more about your coaching, the ministry, and all that?
Okay, yeah. So it's Hu'Mend Network, HUMEND Network. And you can reach me by phone, 251-616-0108. And just, it's a ministry that destigmatizes mental health. It's also a ministry that teaches you how to forgive yourself and love yourself and push past those self-imposed limitations that have been holding you back, because you have been holding yourself back from those quote unquote self-made truths.
Yeah. Yeah. I love talking with you. You are so grounded. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
And that's coming from somebody that's sitting on a grounding mat. I'm not even kidding. I'm not kidding. I can show you.
Yeah.
Coach Key, always great having you on. Really appreciate you, and look forward next time we get together.
I always look forward to it with you, Steve.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.